Assalamu alaikum everyone. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the overview of dietary minerals. So during the lecture, we'll classify different dietary minerals with their biochemical importance. Moreover, their sources and recommended dietary allowances will also be discussed in this lecture, along with the biochemical function and the clinical significances associated with the mineral deficiency as well as mineral toxicity. All these topics will be covered during the lecture. So the dietary minerals, they are the inorganic elements and are the essential for various physiological processes inside the body. And unlike vitamins, minerals are elemental and cannot be synthesized within the body. So they must be supplied through the dietary sources. Dietary minerals are obtained through the diet and play a crucial role in supporting diverse biological functioning, including the maintenance of the structural component, regulation of the enzymatic activity, blood clot, coagulation, and facilitation of various metabolic pathways. So, in order to regulate the bodily functions like muscle contraction, enzymatic regulation, dietary minerals are very essential for the metabolic processes. So the classification of dietary minerals includes macrominerals and microminerals. Macrominerals are termed as macrominerals because they are required by the body in relatively larger amount as compared to the trace minerals, which are required by the body in relatively smaller amount. So the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium, chloride, sulfur, potassium, these are included in macrominerals. On the other hand, fluoride, iron, zinc, copper, magnesium, iodine, selenium, molybdenum, and chromium, they are included among microminerals. Let's move towards the biochemical functions of different macrominerals. Moving towards the biochemical function of calcium. So the calcium is essential for bone and teeth formation. It's very important in various steps of the blood coagulation, including platelet activation, thrombin formation, fibrin clot stabilization, muscle function, nerve transmission, and enzymatic activation. Moving towards phosphorus, phosphorus is integral to bone and teeth structure, and it's involved in energy metabolism as it's the part of adenosine triphosphate, and it's also the integral part of your genetic material like DNA and RNA, and it's involved in their synthesis. Moving towards the magnesium, magnesium is working as a cofactor for numerous enzymes. And one of the enzymatic activity or the biochemical pathway is the activity or is the conversion of glucose to glucose 6-phosphate. And it's also very critical for ATP metabolism, muscle contraction, nerve functioning, and bone health. Okay, now let's move towards one of the very important functioning of biochemical pathway, which is done in the presence of magnesium, is basically the phosphorylation of ADP to ATP. Okay, in the presence of enzyme ATP synthase. So for this enzymatic activity, for the activity of ATP synthase, magnesium is working as a cofactor. Moving towards sodium, sodium maintains fluid balance. How it maintains fluid balance? It maintains the fluid balance by regulating osmotic pressure, influencing renal function, and affecting blood volume and pressure, and thus participating in electrolyte balance as well. It supports nerve function, pH regulation, and plays a very important role in muscle contraction. Okay, now let's discuss the biochemical importance or biochemical functioning of the microminerals. Potassium is very important in order to regulate fluid balance, support nerve impulse, and it's crucial for the muscle contraction and blood pressure regulation. Next macromineral is the chloride. This potassium is is also a macromineral, a mineral, not the micromineral. So potassium regulates the fluid balance, support nerve impulse, and is crucial for the muscle contraction and blood pressure regulation. The next macromineral is the chloride. So chloride is one of the very significance, a very significant function is the formation of the HCl or your stomach acid. It's the part of the HCl, and it's involved in fluid balance and helps to maintain electrical neutrality. Let's move towards the next macromineral, that is sulfur. So sulfur is a component of the amino acid, sulfur containing amino acids, cysteine and methionine. It's also the part of the vitamins like thiamine and biotin and working as a coenzyme as well. One of the example of the coenzyme is coenzyme A is a CoASH. Okay, now moving towards the biochemical importance of the microminerals. Number one micromineral is your iron. Iron is integral part of various protein, and one of the protein is your tryptophan 2,3 dioxygenase enzyme, and it's working as a cofactor, or you can say the cofactor is it's essential for the oxygen transport in hemoglobin, part of the enzymes involved in energy metabolism. And the next micromineral is zinc. Zinc is basically working as a cofactor for the numerous enzyme, and one of the biochemical pathway which is done in the presence of the zinc is particularly the hydrolysis of ATP to ADP in the presence of enzyme ATPase. So this ATPase enzyme, which catalyzes the ATP to ADP and inorganic phosphate, it requires zinc as a cofactor. Okay, it's involved in DNA synthesis, it's involved in immune function and wound healing as well. Moving towards copper. Copper is also working as a cofactor for enzyme. It's involved in iron metabolism and having antioxidant defense mechanism as well. Manganese is also working as a cofactor for enzyme. It's involved in various metabolic processes. It's involved in bone formation and also having the antioxidant property. Moving towards the iodine, the next micromineral. Iodine, number one, as we all know that it's involved, it's very essential for the synthesis of the thyroid hormone, your T3 triiodine, tetraiodo, thyroxine. It's involved in the thyroid hormone synthesis. It's involved in the regulation of the metabolic rate, and it's involved in your growth as well. Your next micromineral is selenium, which is working as a cofactor of antioxidant enzyme. It protects your cells and from the oxidative burden or the oxidative damage. Fluoride. Everyone know its significance with respect to the dental health. It particularly promotes dental health by strengthening tooth enamel and preventing tooth decay. The next micromineral is your chromium. Chromium enhances the action of insulin, hormone insulin, and contributes to glucose metabolism. The next macromineral or the last micromineral is your molybdenum. Molybdenum is working as a cofactor for enzyme. It's involved in sulfur metabolism and detoxification. So these dietary minerals, they play a very crucial role in maintaining, although we are talking about the micromineral or the macromineral, so they are playing a very crucial role in maintaining various physiological function, and a well-balanced diet is essential to ensure an adequate intake of these minerals for the optimum health. Moving towards the absorption of the minerals. Minerals absorption refers to the process by which minerals from the dietary sources are taken up by the body and transported into the bloodstream for the utilization in various physiological functionings. So the factors such as minerals form, dietary composition means in which form mineral is provided, and the dietary composition and individual's health status. These factors play very important role in determining the efficiency of minerals absorption. There are so many minerals which hinders the absorption of the other minerals. So nearly all the minerals are best absorbed in their free forms. But some of the minerals are here which absorb best with other molecules, and some of the minerals can impair the absorption of the other minerals. Okay, so with respect to the bioavailability, few minerals have high bioavailability, means having more than 40% of the minerals can be absorbed. They are termed as the having high bioavailability. These include chloride, fluoride, iodine, potassium, sodium. Okay, the other minerals could be those who have the low bioavailability, and they have the bioavailability less than 10% of the mineral can be absorbed. So these includes like you can say all those minerals which have the lower bioavailability. These are chromium, iron, manganese, and zinc. And there is a borderline in between the high bioavailability and low bioavailability. There are some other minerals which having the range percentage from 30% to the 40%. These include copper, molybdenum, sulfur, and iron, and so on. Okay, now moving towards the sources and dietary recommended allowances of macrominerals and microminerals. First, let's discuss the sources and daily recommended allowances of the macrominerals. And number one is the calcium. So the calcium sources of the calcium are included dairy products, leafy green vegetables, nuts, and fortified foods. And their RDA is basically varies by age and with respect to the sex. For adult, it's around 1,000 to 1,300 milligram. Next macromineral is phosphorus. The sources of phosphorus are included dairy product, meat, fish, poultry, nuts, and whole grains. And they are required by the body at around 700 milligram for adults as our recommended dietary allowance. So next one is the magnesium, whose main source is green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and legumes. Around 400 to 420 milligram for males and 310 to 320 milligram for females is required as daily recommended allowance. Sulfur. Sulfur is basically found in protein-rich foods, garlic, onion, and cruciferous vegetables. There is not any specified recommended dietary allowance for the sulfur, and it is basically primarily obtained from the amino acids, as we have discussed, that's methionine and cysteine. The next macromineral is sodium. Sodium is obtained by table salt, processed food, and naturally occurring in some foods. Its adequate intake is around 1,500 milligram per day. Potassium is obtained by banana, orange, potato, tomato, and different dairy products and legumes. Its daily recommended intake is 4,700 milligram, which is recommended for an adult. Moving towards the sources the recommended dietary allowance of chloride. So the sources included table salt, seaweed, and naturally occurring in some foods. Adequate intake of the chloride is around 2,300 milligram per day for an adult. Okay, now let's discuss the sources and daily recommended allowance of microminerals. So the sources for iron are red meat, poultry, fish, bean, lentils, and fortified cereals, with its daily recommended allowance of around 8 milligram for adult male and 18 milligram for adult female, uh, by so many processes, as during the menstrual cycle a lot of the blood is low, so for this reason a female required more iron for the regular metabolic processes. Next is the zinc. So the zinc, for the sources for the zinc is meat, dairy products, nuts, and legumes. And the daily recommended allowance for zinc is around 11 milligram for adult males and 8 milligram for adult females. Copper is acquired by seafood, nuts, seeds, whole grain, and organ meats, and it's required as around 900 milligram microgram for an adult. So its recommended dietary allowance is 900 microgram for an adult. It's a micromineral. Okay, moving towards the manganese. Manganese is required by an adult male as around 2.3 milligram and by an adult female as around 1.8 milligram. And the sources of manganese included whole grains, nuts, seeds, tea, and leafy green vegetables. Okay, the next micromineral which is required is iodine, and the sources included seafood, dairy products, iodide salt, and seaweed. And its daily recommended intake is around 150 microgram for adult. Selenium is obtained by Brazil nuts, seafoods, meat, and grains, and its daily recommended intake is around 555 microgram for adults. Fluoride, very important for your bone health. It's basically taken up by the body via drinking water, which is fluoridated water. It's obtained by tea and seafood. Its daily recommended intake varies by age. For adult, it's around 4 milligram. Moving towards the sources of the chromium. So the sources of chromium are whole grain, nuts, broccoli, and meat. And its daily recommended intake is 35 microgram for a male and 25 microgram for a female. Molybdenum, the last micromineral, is its sources included legumes, nuts, seeds, and grain, and around 45 microgram of molybdenum is required for an adult as a daily recommended intake. Okay, now moving towards the biochemical functioning of minerals. So the microminerals, as we have discussed earlier, play a crucial role in variety of biochemical functioning, contributes to overall health and functioning of the human body. And the deficiencies or any sort of excess of these minerals may have deleterious impact on your health and your well-being. So moving towards the biochemical functions of the micromineral, number one, calcium. Calcium is very important as an integral for bone and teeth formation. It facilitates the blood clotting, like we have discussed it earlier. It's involved in platelet activation, thrombin clot formation, thrombin formation, and fibrin clot stabilization. It's essential for the muscle contraction and nerve transmission. It's also acting as a cofactor for various enzymes. Okay, and now moving towards the biochemical function of the phosphorus. It's also important for bone and teeth structure. It's involved in energy metabolism as it is the integral part of your DNA and RNA, and it is the integral part of your energy as a adenosine triphosphate. Moving towards the biochemical function of the magnesium. So magnesium is working as a cofactor for numerous enzymes, as we have discussed, as it's working as a cofactor for number one, your enzyme ATP, ADP synthase, in which phosphorylation of ADP to ATP occurs. And it's critical for ATP metabolism. It's essential for muscle contraction, nerve function, and bone health. Okay, moving towards the biochemical function of the sodium. Sodium maintains fluid balance. How it maintains fluid balance? By regulating osmotic pressure, influencing renal function, affecting blood volume and pressure, and participating in electrolyte balance. It supports nerve functioning, play a role in muscle contraction. Okay, so sulfur is a very important component of the amino acid cysteine and methionine, and it's also present in vitamins like thiamine and biotin and working as coenzyme as well. Moving towards the biochemical functioning of the chloride. So chloride is involved in fluid balance, forms part of the stomach acid, helps to maintain electrical neutrality. And potassium regulates blood fluid balance, support nerve impulse, and crucial for muscle contraction as well. Now moving towards the biochemical functioning of the micromineral. So with respect to the micromineral, iron is essential for oxygen transport in hemoglobin. It's part of the enzymes involved in energy metabolism. Zinc is working as a cofactor for numerous enzymes, and one of the example of the enzyme is ATPase, in which ATP is hydrolyzed to ADP and PI. So for the enzymatic activity of ATPase, zinc is very required as a cofactor. It's involved in DNA synthesis as well. It's involved in immune function and wound healing. Moving towards the biochemical functioning of fluoride, as we have discussed earlier, it promotes dental health by strengthening tooth enamel, helps to prevent tooth decay, and chromium. Chromium enhances insulin action and contribute to glucose metabolism. Molybdenum is working also as a cofactor. It's involved in sulfur metabolism, and it's also working as a detoxifying agent. It's involved in the detoxification. Manganese among the microminerals, manganese working as cofactor for various enzymes involved in metabolism and having antioxidant defense. It supports bone formation. Iodine is essential for thyroid hormone synthesis, regular metabolic rate, and growth. Copper is also working as a cofactor for enzyme. It's involved in iron metabolism and antioxidant defensive system. Selenium. Selenium acts as a cofactor for antioxidant enzyme, and it protects cells from antioxidative damage. Okay, now let's move towards the clinical significances which are associated with the mineral deficiencies and toxicities. So it's essential to note that all the clinical significances of mineral deficiency or toxicity can vary based on individual factors such as age, sex, health status, and overall diet. Regular monitoring and appropriate intervention guided by the healthcare provider or the professionals is crucial for maintaining the mineral balance and preventing the associated disorders which are associated with their either with their deficiency or with their over intake or their toxicity. Okay, now let's discuss some of the clinical significances which are associated with mineral deficiencies. Calcium deficiency may have a clinical sign as weak bones, increased risk of fracture, osteoporosis, and the consequences involved are impaired nerve and muscle function, leading to cramps and spasms. Iron deficiency is associated with fatigue, weakness, anemia, pale skin, and its consequences associated reduced oxygen transport, affecting energy levels and overall health. Okay, zinc deficiency may be seen as a clinical sign like impaired wound healing, skin lesions, and weakened immune function. And the consequences which are associated with zinc deficiency are compromised immune response and delayed growth in children. Iodine deficiency may have a clinical significance number one greater, in which there is an enlarged thyroid hormone, thyroid gland. It may also lead to hypothyroidism and intellectual disabilities in severe cases. And the consequences involved are impaired thyroid functioning, leading to hormonal imbalance, as well as we have seen in hypothyroidism. Okay, so vitamin D deficiency. This vitamin D deficiency is particularly associated with the calcium metabolism. Its clinical significance included bone pain, muscle weakness, and increased risk of fracture. And the consequences which are associated with vitamin D deficiency or the calcium improper metabolism are involved impaired calcium absorption, affecting bone health as well. Moving towards the selenium deficiency. Selenium deficiency will have a clinical sign and symptom as muscle pain, weakness, and compromised immune function. And the consequences which are involved as as selenium deficiency are included increased susceptibility to infection, potential impact of cardiovascular health. Now, discuss the clinical significance which are associated with the mineral toxicity. Number one is calcium toxicity. Calcium toxicity may have clinical signs and symptoms as constipation, kidney stones, and impaired absorption of other minerals. And the consequences involved interference with the absorption of essential minerals, leading to imbalance of different micro and macro minerals. Iron toxicity. This iron toxicity may have a clinical sign as nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and in severe cases, there may be organ damage. And the consequences which are involved or associated with iron toxicity are hemochromatosis, a condition where excess iron accumulates in your organs. Next is zinc toxicity, which is also symptomatized as nausea, vomiting, and impaired immune function, and having consequences like interference with copper absorption, leading to copper deficiency. Now, moving towards the iodine toxicity. Iodine toxicity having clinical signs of thyroid dysfunctioning, goiter, gastrointestinal upset, and the consequences which are associated with iodine toxicity are impaired thyroid functioning, potentially leading to hyperthyroidism. Moving towards the selenium toxicity will have its clinical signs and symptoms as hair and nail loss, GID upset, and neurological symptoms. And the consequences associated with selenium toxicity are selenosis, which may lead to serious health issues. Moving towards the fluoride toxicity. Fluoride toxicity will have a clinical sign and symptom. Number one, very important, dental fluorosis, staining and pitting of the teeth. It is also involved, the signs and symptoms are also involved as skeletal fluorosis. And the consequences involved with fluoride toxicity are dental and skeletal abnormalities, which affects the bone and your tooth health. Okay, now summarize the overall lecture. Dietary minerals play a vital role in maintaining physiological function, and they are classified as macro. According to their requirement, they are classified as macro mineral and micro mineral. Macro minerals are calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium, potassium, chloride, and sulfur, and they are essential for bone health, energy metabolism, and nerve functioning. However, microminerals include iron, zinc, copper, manganese, iodine, selenium, fluoride, chromium, molybdenum, and they contribute to enzymatic activity, immune response, and thyroid functioning. Sourcing of minerals. There are different sources of the minerals, and the sources are from diverse food is crucial. For example, calcium is found in dairy and leafy greens, vegetables, while zinc is abundant in meat and legumes. Daily recommended allowance vary, and deficiency or toxicity can lead to significant health consequences or significant health issues. Number one, calcium deficiency may result in weakened bones, while iron deficiency may lead to anemia and fatigue. Excessive intake like iron toxicity leading to organ damage, or fluoride toxicity causing dental fluorosis poses different health risk. Understanding these minerals and intricacies and ensuring a balanced intake is paramount for overall health and preventing adverse effects. And therefore, it's very important to have an adequate intake of these macro and micro minerals with proper monitoring, because deficiency may lead to serious health issues. In the similar instance, there's toxicity, either we are talking about the micromineral toxicity or the macromineral toxicity. Their toxicities may also have adverse health effects. So that's all for today's lecture. Thank you very much.